Hello and welcome to Day 7 in the 12 Days of Christmas Cards series. This is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and today's project is called Crazy Dog Christmas because I took Tim Holtz's Crazy Dog stamp set and modified one of the stamps to make it look more like my dog Django. So there's the picture of the card, and here's a good look at my buddy Django. He's a Chihuahua Rat Terrier mix that we got from the local shelter, and his ears are nuts. They're huge. You can see here in this tiny little video that they're a big part of his personality. He puts them up, he puts them down, he uses them all the time, and it adds a lot to his little cute self. So when I saw this stamp set, I thought that that stamp there on the right could easily be him, just that the ears were wrong. So what I decided to do was take a picture of him and change the stamp just for me. So I stamped it without the ears, and then I hand drew on some new ears, like the pointy kind. And then I took a black marker and I outlined what I had drawn to keep it in sort of the feeling of the original stamp set, which is sort of sketchy and there's different line variations and that kind of thing. And so you'll see here in a second what I got. So that's what I came up with. However, when I erased the lines, I didn't wait long enough, so the pencil or the marker smeared all over, and then the bottom was also not stamped real well, so it was kind of blurry, and I just didn't think that I could use this. So I wanted to do a second one. So what I did was I stamped a second one with Memento Tuxedo black ink, and now I have got my very ancient light box from way back in the day that I never got rid of, and I'm going to just trace over it with my pencil to get the outline of the ears that I already drew. Now this is cardstock on top of cardstock, so it's pretty thick. It's a little tough to see, and you can see I got the left ear a little bit wrong, so I do go back and try to just fix it by hand because it's too tough to see. However, I think if you did it with paper and you had a really, really bright window, you could pretty easily trace it on a really bright window. And then I take my Stampin' Write marker in basic black and I trace out his ears again, and I'm using both nibs on this pen because again there is line variation on the original design of the stamps, and so I wanted to kind of capture that feel and sort of just how funny it was and everything. And then I just erase the lines. However, I do want to note that that was a bad marker to use because it's not waterproof. And since I color him with Inktense pencils, the non-waterproof pen does not hold up real well. So if you were going to do this yourself, I would say use a Copic liner. Those are waterproof and they will hold up. So again, I added a little Santa hat onto him and traced it out with my pen. Again, I wanted this to be a Christmas card, so he needed a funny Santa hat. And now I'm going to start coloring him with my Inktense pencils. Inktense pencils are one of my favorite coloring mediums. They are like watercolor pencils in that they're water soluble and they blend together with water. You can see like the color gets a lot more vibrant with water. And you can blend colors together. You can just add layers on top of each other. They're great, but they are highly, highly pigmented. So you need to be careful when you start out. Don't go too heavy. Like when I first laid on the initial coat, I am barely touching that paper. I am just lightly sketching on that color, and then I take the water and blend it out and see what I've got, and then let it dry. Or maybe I'll just go back and keep going. Eventually, things do get too wet, so I can't keep blending them. So like right now I've stopped blending the ears and the body and I've moved on to the hat. Now you can see the pen is starting to run there, but I make it work. I just grab some different red and add in some more shadows and stuff to just hopefully obscure the fact that the pen ran pretty badly once the water hit it. And so while I'm doing waiting for the body to dry, I do the hat and the collar and the little tag, and those I all do it's kind of in one shot. So I'm really using just two colors for each of these, a lighter and a darker, and I just put a base coat of the light down and then add shadows with the darker and then blend it with the water. And now I'm going back and shading in more of the body and getting it another layer on top to add more saturation to the color level. And here you can see I've skipped ahead and I've really got him gotten him pretty saturated and pretty to the color like that I wanted him. He does have markings somewhat similar to like a German Shepherd. So his ears are black, his nose is black, he has little black markings on his legs. So I wanted to get those all pretty dark. And then I added in some like dark chocolate to add shadows to the body. And then it was kind of tough to get the blacks as black as I wanted them. So I kept going back and forth to get that exactly the way I wanted it. And then his ears have a little bit of that sort of orangey brown on the inside. So I used my brush directly to the pencil and just dabbed that in to get the right color saturation. Now I wanted to use one of these little cork glitter hearts that I've got. They're stickers. They're from Pink Paisley in the C'est La Vie collection. They're super cute. But the cork by itself was a little too close to his body, so I took my Spectrum Noir DR5 red marker and added some red splotches onto that heart just to pull in the red color from his hat and make it stand out a little bit from him. Now he needed something to be sitting on. I didn't want him just floating in the middle of that card, so I had to give him some floor. So I drew a sketchy line, and then I grabbed my Spectrum Noirs in IG1, IG2, and IG4 to shadow in a line. And then I take my Copic liners and add a little sketchy bit over the floor and then go back in over his ear lines too, just to keep with the sketchy feel of that the original stamps have. Now I'm adhering him down with a glue stick, and then that heart is a sticker, so it just sticks right down. And that's when I realized I probably need a little more shading under them, so I add a little bit more with my Spectrum Noirs. And then I wanted those wag lines back in because I had fussy cut him out, but they are on the stamp. So I just kind of looked at the stamp and hand drew those back in around his tail. For the inside greeting, I did this on my computer. And then I took my favorite things, pierced rectangles, dies, and I die cut out the greeting as well as a larger rectangle for a mat. I knew I wanted the mat to have the same kind of sketchy colored feel as the dog on the front. So I took my Inktense pencils to color up the mat on this. So I'm using the exact same reds that I used on the front for his hat, which were Hot Red and Shiraz. Hot Red is the lighter color, and then Shiraz is more the wine color. If you need to know the specific colors I used for this, all of that information is available on the supply list, which is linked below in the video description, so you can find all that information. I get a little crazy anal about this and go a little nuts, but I really wanted kind of some shading and some variation on this mat, so you can see I'm kind of going to town with my Shiraz, and there you go. And then I also decided I wanted some sketchy lines, so again, added some sketchy lines with my Copic marker on that mat as well. And you know, since I love all things sparkly and no Christmas card is complete without some sparkle, I had to grab my Spectrum Noir clear marker set, or marker, and add some sparkle just to the outline side of that greeting. Now my ATG gun decided to totally break at that point, so I grabbed the glue stick again and got the greeting mat layered down on the mat. And then I had done this little bone that is also in the stamp set. I colored that in with tan and oak Inktense pencils also, and I knew I wanted to stick this on the greeting somewhere, so I'm just kind of messing around to figure out where. And when I get it in that bottom right corner, I realize that's it. So I get that stuck down as well. And I do lay the whole thing under an acrylic block so it lays flat because it was starting to warp a little bit, I think from all the water I had been using to color it originally. So once I get the whole thing flat and nice and set, I do stick all this down on the inside with some Be Creative tape. And it is kind of at this point that I realized the front is sort of missing something. So I grabbed my Copic liner and I made a whole bunch of dots all over the front. There were some dots on the front already from the watercolor I did on the inside greeting. So I just took the black liner and went over those, and then I added extras, and it worked really great. And his eyes weren't really cutting it either. So I grabbed my Ranger black tie enamel accents and I used those on his eyes. And then I took some Stickles Icicle glitter glue and added that to the trim on his hat, and that really finished it off and gave it a lot more personality than what it originally had. So if you're going to do this kind of modification, I think you're fine doing it for your own personal use, and as long as you do it for your by hand. Like I think you could modify the ears on this guy and make a pug. I think this guy could be modified to create like a Great Dane if you went with pointy ears. The guys on the up, like this one, I think could be turned into a Cocker Spaniel. This guy could become a Lab or potentially a German Shepherd, depending on how you do the ears. So I think that's an option for you. Just bear in mind that this is somebody else's original artwork, and so you cannot electronically scan it in after you've modified it. It does not become yours. It is still theirs. So because I did this for my own personal use, and I did make 3 of these and I did them all by hand, like I copied them by hand, I think I'm okay. But don't do this and try to sell them, because that would be, I believe, violating some copyright law. However, I did want to show you that you do have options, especially for personal projects with various stamp sets, and you should look at how you could potentially modify them to make them a little more personal for yourself. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you stopping by my Christmas card series. All the other videos are linked below in the description, as is the supply list. I'd be thrilled if you'd come back tomorrow for day 8 in the series. It goes all the way through day 12. Thanks so much. Happy holidays.